It wasn't that long ago that I was myself sitting where you are. Now I work for CBS 4 News as a courts producer, special projects producer. Since I graduated from FIU, I've always been a journalist. I worked at the Miami Herald, and then I spent some time in Europe. I worked for Night Ritter newspapers there before McClatchy took it over, so I spent some time working in Paris. After that, I did a few internships around the country, and now I'm here locally with my family. My daughter's in the front row, so anyway, just saying that. And soon, hopefully, she'll be one of you as well. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was about adding depth to your story. And I'm going to begin with a simple question, which is, how many of you know, how do you know what you know? So, when somebody tells you something, when you go to do a story, first of all, how many of you have published or written stories already? Raise your hand. Okay. I want to hear, I want this forum to be more like talk back. I don't want to stand here and just tell you, you know, I want it to be more conversational. So I want to hear from you and your experience and when did somebody tell you something? Did you just take their word for it, or did you just go and check it out? Even if it's somebody reliable like the police department or a government official. How many of you took the time, welcome, come in, take your seats.
Thank you.
That's okay, thank you, that's fine. Welcome, come in. So just for those coming in, we're just going to catch up again. Basically, I'm talking about how to add more depth to your story, and my main question to you is, how do you know what you know? So, the last time you did an interview with somebody, did you know exactly that the information, were you able to independently verify the information, or did you have to take their word for it? Anybody, by a show of hands, can you tell me if you just took their word for it, or did you actually go research to see if what they were telling you? Yes. Could you tell me about what happened in your case?
Well, I was writing an article, it's not an article, like for a project, and I was doing for global warming. And someone told me that global warming increases their temperature, which it does.
Right.
Then I researched it, and what they said was true, but I had more details to what they were saying about what global warming is.
And that's an interesting issue, because the issue with global warming is there's a lot of differences of opinion, and then people will base their opinion based on their own paid research. So for somebody who doesn't want to believe in global warming, they're going to pay for a research paper that comes out that says our emissions have nothing to do with, you know, does not affect the warming of the climate, and then there are some people who say definitely it does. We can see these radical changes in the climate, but then that's very tricky actually, and that's where a lot of journalists run into problems, because you really don't. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. We don't know a lot of things about life in general. We don't know whether there's truth or not. So that's why what we try to do is bring both sides and give the reader as much information as possible. Can somebody else give me an example of when? Yes, you go ahead.
I was writing my first article, actually. It was on sex education, like what's the policy in Miami-Dade, of basically what are teachers supposed to say and what does the school say when students ask about sex education. And when I went and talked to the principal, actually first the head chair department, we don't have an official department for it, but who's in charge of it, she said, oh no, we tell students, you know, to use protection and all this stuff. And then when I talked to the principal and I showed him, first I asked him the question, he agreed with it, of what teachers do. Then I showed him the policy that I found by myself on Miami-Dade website that said abstinence completely, and because I had him recording, he just said, Gables follows this policy, Gables follows this policy.
Oh, okay, very good. So you actually, this is an excellent example of how somebody, he knew it should look deeper than whatever somebody was telling him. So he actually went in, found the policy, and then confronted him. And that's a very scary especially when you're just starting out, it's a very scary proposition to go up to someone with authority and say, hey, wait a minute, you just said something to me, but look what this says. And it's not an easy thing to do, but you've all signed up to do it, so congratulations. This is what preserves our democracy. This is why everyone came to this country. Many times I find myself at the courthouse in very difficult situations. When you're at the criminal courthouse, people have either lost somebody due to a shooting, a homicide, a drunk driver, and the things that you will never believe could ever happen to you are happening to these families. So my difficult, I have to go up to families after they've lost somebody and put a camera in their face and ask them how they feel. What do you think is the best way to approach somebody who just lost their family member to a drunk driver, and then they have to go to the courtroom, and then they have to confront the drunk driver sitting there, about to go through a hearing, maybe be released on bond. So, any ideas? How would you confront the victim's family?
First, you would start off by apologizing for their loss. Then you would say who you are and who you work for, and ask them if you can ask them a few questions.
Very good. Excellent. Absolutely, yeah. And always acknowledge that people are hurting in these situations. I see a lot of reporters who are sometimes, you get cold after, through the years you get tough skin and you don't really realize at the humanity that we're dealing with here. Look around all of you and you'll see that all of us have something about our lives that has shaped us, and it could have been good and it could have been really bad. But we're all here today because those things happened to us. We would never go up to somebody in a normal situation like we're in today and say, oh, I heard about this happening to your grandmother, talk to me about it. Like, no, we wouldn't. So we're already in a really weird situation where we have to come up to people and ask them questions. Why should I, as a journalist, bother? Maybe I should just give them the space. Why do you think that maybe it's worth a shot to let them talk? Any ideas?
Like their story.
Right?
So that was a good way to order.
Yeah.
If it comes to the court case, their perspective may not come through, especially to the public, even if they're on the side that did something wrong.
So I'm going to play the role of somebody who's just lost a family member in a car accident. You guys have to convince me that I want to talk to you. What would you tell me? Yeah.
Maybe if you talk, it could help prevent this from happening in the future.
Okay,
So
so that's the altruistic. You're appealing to the person's altruistic nature, that maybe this has happened to you and I'm so sorry, but maybe your experience can help others. Especially, I find that to be true with domestic violence cases too. Somebody else had their hand up? Yeah.
You can say that you want your voice to be heard amongst all these maybe these accusations against your loved one or something like that. That you want your story, like they said, your story, your pure perspective to be heard amongst all these.
Okay. Your perspective, your point of view.
Yeah.
Let's share that, because otherwise we're only going to hear from the defense attorney representing the bad guy, really, in your situation. Okay, that's a good point. Yes.
In certain cases, especially if public opinion is really affecting the case, such as a really polarizing case, if you get your perspective out, you may sway large amounts of people, and perhaps.
That's an excellent point. You could actually help pass legislation. Actually, that really happened. There was a case in Key Biscayne in which a bicyclist was driving over the Rickenbacker Causeway. He was struck by a motorist, a drunk man who just left a bar, and it was like 5 in the morning. So the bicyclist was out being, the good bicyclist going out for his early morning ride, and this guy's just leaving a bar, and he slams into him and kills him. His name was Aaron Cohen. He was a father, he was a husband, and he died that night. He died that day. Michelle Traverso was the driver behind the car. Michelle Traverso had a few previous tickets and previous reckless driving accidents, but never killed anybody. Michelle Traverso, what he did is he went to his Key Biscayne condo He went upstairs, he sobered up, he left the scene, which by the way is illegal. If you're ever in a car accident, please stay at the scene. He left the scene, cleaned up, covered his car so that covered it with a tarp so nobody would see the damage. And then a few days later, the police found him because of the evidence at the scene and because of witnesses. Michelle Traverso then went through the court system, and anybody want to guess how much time he got in jail? They invited, yes.
10 to 20 years.
10 to 20 years. So you guys think that's about fair? Like, yeah.
5 years.
5 years, that could be. Anybody else want to take a guess? Come on, let's not be shy. My little daughter's not shy. Come on. All right, just figure it out. Okay, he actually got 364 days in jail, in county jail. He didn't even do a year. The reason for that was because up until this year, when the legislature passed this law, because of this case in particular, if you left the scene, they couldn't prove that you were drunk. So he left, and they could never draw his blood because by the time they got him, he had already gotten out of his system. So they could never prove that he was drunk. So therefore, they only charged him with leaving the scene of an accident. And there you go. He only did 364 days. So essentially, the law, up until very recently, was rewarding people for leaving the scene if you're drunk. It was like ridiculous. So now the penalties are harsher, and now you could be facing 10, 15 years. Yes?
But isn't it still involuntary manslaughter?
It's not involved. It would be vehicular homicide or DUI manslaughter. Those would be the charges. It's not involuntary. So, I think that's more like accidental at home, like the different scenario. So the point of today's of me being here today is to add more depth to your story. So a case like Aaron Cohen is a perfect example of this. This isn't just this one case. Now this impacts all future cases because this is, and so you see that one story has the potential of now impacting thousands, if not millions, of lives in the future. That, you know, you can feel safer that if somebody's gonna hit you, that they just won't get away with it because they couldn't prove that he was drunk. So that's one example. But I also wanted to let you know that public records are a very important tool. How many of you have been able to pull public records under our Florida public records law? Written a letter asking for, nobody? Okay. Chapter 119 of the Florida statutes, and this is important because you're going to use this every time you want anything from a police record. You can get a list of all the police officers in the entire county and the entire state if that's what you need. I often have to go look at police records files. There's another case right now in the court that I'm looking at, and it involves a police officer from Coral Springs who got into an accident in Coral Gables. He killed this woman in a drunk driving accident. I can't say drunk driving accident because they just took down the drunk driving charge, but this is just to give you an example. So he crashed into this woman, she died, she had a little daughter, and it's really tragic. But what makes it more tragic is that the charge of DUI manslaughter has been dropped. And the reason for that is it was a legal technicality on the legal side where, because nobody witnessed him drunk, and all the other cops who investigated the scene said, I didn't see anything, I didn't smell any alcohol, then they had no basis for the search warrant to get his blood. They did draw his blood. He had twice the legal limit. It was 3 times the legal limit. It was 0.229. That's a lot. But because of this technical point, they couldn't go through with the DUI manslaughter. Right now, he's only facing vehicular manslaughter. The reason I'm telling you all this is because dig deeper, folks. What I did was not only I saw this and it doesn't smell right? Like why would it seems like, oh, favoritism. On the surface, it seems like, hey, here's a cop and he's getting away with it, right? But if you dig deeper, you look at the court file. I started looking at all the witness statements. You start reading. And yeah, it takes time to read through all the depositions, but sometimes you'll find very interesting things. Like right now, I just found that information about the other cops saying that they didn't smell anything, and it's like everybody sort of writes it the same way. So, so it's very interesting when you start taking the time to look at things and understand, well, if something doesn't smell right, understand why. Don't just leave it. Because you know what, at the end of the day, if you don't go through with it, it will haunt you. You know, right now I know of a guy who's doing close to life for a murder he didn't commit. So I'm trying to do my best work to try to bring that to light. But I can't just do it. As a journalist, I can't just say, well, a lot of people are telling me this, right?
You have to get facts.
I can't, and it bothers me. I really want to, you know, what if the guy that really did it is out there, and he could go after any one of them, you know? It's a very scary thing, but my job is really to protect lives in a way. And it haunts me every day to this very moment, because I still haven't been able to get all the facts together. But I'm working on it, and you know, it's about saving lives sometimes, journalism. Sometimes it may seem like frivolous because we all read these entertainment blogs, we all read, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin or whatever, Beyonce, but the more important stories are the ones that affect us locally, right? What if this guy's out there? He is. I know for a fact that this guy's out there, but I have to be able to prove. I have to be able to show everything. So it takes time. You have to go through the file. It's not glamorous work because you have to go through a lot of boring motions, but at the end of the day, it's rewarding work. So I'm going to leave you with this. Yeah?
How long has it been since he was convicted?
Oh, God, he's been in jail since 2009. He has a little daughter he hasn't seen since then. It's a horrible case, and so a lot of his lawyers, his public defenders have come to me and said, Jasmine, we need to talk to you about this case. We need to tell you what's going on. This isn't right. But even his lawyers, even so many people in so many powerful positions at the courthouse know about this, and their hands are tied. And they're coming to me. You know, they're coming to me to try, please put this out there. Let's do something. So it goes to show the power that we truly have in journalism. You're not going to make a ton of money doing it. I'm telling you that right now. So if you're looking to make money, don't get into journalism. But on the flip side, it's so rewarding. It's, you know, it's a type of thing. What if I can get him out of jail? What if we can bring the man who really did it to justice? What if? You know, how do you put a price tag on those kinds of stories? So now I want to hear from you, and I just want to go around the room. I want you all to introduce yourselves and tell me what you've done and what you hope to do with a journalism degree. Let's begin here.
I'm actually an advisor at Divine Savior Academy for the student.
I'm sorry?
An advisor at Divine Savior Academy for our students.
Oh, okay, very good.
My name is Winnie, and I'm in the student leadership academy. I'm not actually thinking about getting a journalism degree, but I love writing, and I'm trying to get experience in different types of writing, so I want to teach it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Malha. I'm managing editor of our school magazine, Home Legacy. I'm not looking into a journalism degree either, but I do love writing, and it's a passion.
Oh, good.
My name is Myra Davey. I'm the copy editor of the Home Legacy. With a journalism degree, I hope to double major with international relations and kind of combine both to do more informative writing about worldview topics.
Good.
My name is Jada. I work for Catharsis, the literary magazine in school, and I want to be in journalism and travel.
Oh, that's great. That's what I wanted to do when I first started. And I did get to do it. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Yvette, and I'm in Braddock, and I just started in yearbook